Hi, welcome to Fashion Reimagined Summer Camp. My name is Irina Johnson. I will be your instructor this week. Welcome. Now we'll be preparing our materials for the next two classes. We won't be using this stuff today, but we definitely want to get it ready for tomorrow and the day after. And for this part, we will be using wax paper. This usually comes in a roll. It's used for baking. You can also use parchment paper, or it can come in sheets. You can use those as well. So what we have here is a book, kind of a big book. And so what I'm going to do is cut out a piece of parchment paper or wax paper, roughly the size of the page, and open up your book maybe halfway, open like this. Lay your piece of wax or parchment paper inside and go outside and collect some beautiful greenery from your backyard or front yard or a park that you go to. Here are some examples. They don't need to be too big. Remember, this is going to be kind of fitting into our skirts like this. So maybe 8 inches, 10 inches max. And I will be laying them on my parchment paper or wax paper, making sure they don't touch, okay? And just lay them where you have space like this. And then use another piece of parchment paper the same size, lay it on top, and very carefully close the book. Now you can do several sections like this. You can open the book, maybe skip a few pages, open the book wide again, and do another layering of flowers. So you've layered the leaves and sticks and flowers in your parchment paper, pressed it inside of a book. And now I have several books actually that I've done. I'm going to stack a bunch of other books on top. So we are going to let this stay pressed, nice and heavy, and just leave that until we need it a couple days from now. So one of the elements we'll be using in our designs are silk flowers that I got at the dollar store. But basically, I'll just be pulling them apart like this. Okay, so here I pulled this one apart, and there's usually a little plastic bit here in the center. And I'm just gonna take it all apart and be left with just the petals. And this part you can throw away. Remove the head of the flower first and then pull up the leaves like this. At some point you will have to trim it with scissors to get rid of that plastic little stem. And you can even take these apart with scissors as well. I sometimes just fold them and just cut away the center. Then I have all these little petals. You can cut some of the flowers into quarters, or just have whole little flowers if they're small, or you can just go petal by petal, or you can just leave the little buds. Sometimes the flowers have little buds on them. Just leave those little buds. They make very cute sleeves and all kinds of fun shapes. So we're going to begin by creating sketches of models. And once we learn how to make these models in the correct proportions, you'll be able to start layering clothing and fun designs on top of your diagrams. So step number 1 is to get your sketch pad and lay it horizontally on your table surface. We're going to need a ruler, and you will be using a pencil and an eraser. I will be using this pen because I want you to be able to see it clearly on the camera. So we're going to start by drawing 9-inch vertical lines. Here's one. Now you'll be dividing this line, this 9-inch line, into 1-inch little marks, and just tiny little lines across your main center axis like this. this. Next thing you're going to do, and you're doing this again with a pencil, you will be drawing horizontal lines through every little tick mark like this. Okay. Okay, so I should have 10 lines and 9 rows. What I will do now is I will number each of these sections. This is row number 1, 2, 9. And now I am going to draw vertical lines, every 2 inches. So first we're going to start with the head, and the head is going from this first line to the second line right in here, and it's an oval that you're going to draw just like this. Okay, the shoulders are usually somewhere between this section and this section. Usually I'll say 1.5, like that. And these shoulders, I'm going to make sure that they are roughly the size of the head if you turned it sideways like this, plus a little bit of extra. Then you are going to have the waist, and the waist is between numbers 3 and 4, which is right here. Now, the waist is about the size of the head, like this. And then you have the hips, and the hips are between section 4 and 5 on this line right here. The hips are about the same size as the shoulders. So now what we're going to do is we're going to connect the points like that. Now the knees are between 6 and 7 along this line, and what I do for the knees is I draw little circles that are close together like this. Also in these corners I draw little circles for the shoulders. The ankle is at number 8, roughly over here, and they're very close together. I usually just do 1 circle at this intersection here. And that's the general proportion of our figure. So if we start connecting the hips to the outer ovals over here at the knees, and then continue down to the ankle circle like this. And now for the toes, basically the toes, I draw kind of these little almost triangles like this. And that's going to be the feet, usually at about 8.5 to 9 inches down. You're also going to now connect these circular shoulders here and create a neck that goes like that, and a neck that goes like that. Now the general idea here is we're going to write our little notes here. Between 4 and 5, this will be, remember, the hip right there. That's the hip, and that's going to help you down the road to remember these proportions. This line between 3 and 4 is the waist. And somewhere over here, you can draw a little dotted line, is shoulders. And all of this is the head. So you're going to draw these little notations for yourself so you remember. Between 6 and 7, we had this line were the knees. And between 8 and 9, this line was the ankles. Now we're going to practice on the rest of these vertical lines. I'm going to draw another oval here. I'm going to remember that dotted line. You can make the waist maybe a little bit shorter this time, maybe not as wide. You can make the hips. Make sure you have those 2 circles for the knees, 1 little tiny circle for the ankles. And just remember to connect the outer points. Notice how I'm making slight curves on the outer calves and thighs. Not too much. And then kind of almost like a triangle for the feet like this. Tiny little circles for the shoulders, and now we're going to connect all of these neck and shoulders. Now for the arms, you're going contour these little ovals and to kind of follow along the contour of the body like this. Okay, you can make the arms fairly skinny or just use a line at this stage and then we can build up the body. So I want you to make as many of these vertical lines as you can. In fact, if you tear this page out, and you can just continue this grid onto the next page and onto the next and make as many of these vertical lines to practice as many of these figures as you can. You can make them wider, you can practice, play around with making them skinnier like these ladies here. You can make them a bit more realistic and give them some hips and some shoulders. But just make sure that you are placing the shoulders, the waist, the hips, the knees, and the ankles in the right segments. Now, as far as elbows go, they line up with the waist. So I'm gonna make a little circle right there. And the wrists will line up more or less with the hips. So little tiny circle there. And basically you can create arms that kind of curve like that. And right at the hand, I would just kind of follow that curve like that. You can always make adjustments. Now you can start playing with different poses now. As far as the arms go, you can have them kind of tucked to the sides, or you can practice maybe having one bend like this. And you can play around again with proportions like that. You can exaggerate the length. Do things like that to keep them interesting. And when you do hair, for example, make sure that your hair is not starting on top. That if you have like a side part, it cuts right into the shape of the head like this. And if you're gonna have like the hair go up in a bun, you can add a little bit of this to it. And you can even add a little curl like that. And then just fill it in like this. So you can have bangs on your girl. If you add bangs on your girl, make sure that it's cutting about maybe almost like a third of the way down the head like this. Okay, so your assignment for the next hour or so is just to practice and to perfect the lines and the proportions. Make sure that you are erasing lines that you don't like and trying to keep that pencil light. I want you to use your pen. I have this thin Sharpie, but whatever ink pen you have, to go over all of them with ink. And then you can erase the lines underneath if you like. But overall, I'd like you to keep the grid with the numbers here and your notes to remind you as you keep going where all the important joints go. Next time we will start doing loose sketches and actually start designing our clothes, and I will go over some techniques for drawing folds and skirts and sleeves, etc. And then we will begin to just let your imagination go wild and use various materials to create beautiful fashions. See you next time.